Hey guys, how you doing? This is JP Sarricolea coming to you again with another episode of Age of Heroes, my podcast. And this is actually episode number 80, which is a big number. Thank you very much for your support. I want to thank those that have followed me from the beginning, and also anyone that has is following me at any point. Thank you very much for your support. Thank you for watching the videos on YouTube. Thank you for listening through the different apps, whether you do it through Spreaker, whether you do it through iTunes, Stitcher. Also, I have new apps. You can actually listen through Castbox. You can listen through SoundCloud. You can listen through Spotify. And all the links are down below. So actually, it gives you more room for you to listen to your own convenience. So thank you very much for whoever is listening. I appreciate the support. Now, in today's episode, I want to talk about, of course, Star Wars. As you can see, Star Wars, the title is The Rise of Fandom. It's definitely an amazing time for any Star Wars fans because there's a lot of things happening for Star Wars. Great things are coming. Of course, Star Wars has been on the scrutiny of a lot of fans throughout recent years because of some of the decisions that have been made within the franchise. And definitely it's something that a lot of people they take too hard. A lot of fans, they take whatever decision, whatever is happening with Star Wars, they take it too hard. They really want to get involved in the decision making of the franchise. Of course, we have grown with this franchise. We have seen the movies. We have watched, of course, all of them. We have played the video games. We have played with the toys. So it's a big part of pop culture. Like I said, as you know, many of you know, I'm 40 years old. I was born 1978, so I was born after the first movie came out in 1977. I didn't watch that movie at the theaters. I didn't watch the second one at the theaters, but I did watch, the last one. Was that The Empire Strikes Back? The episode now, it was episode 3 then, but now, of course, it's episode 6. Although The Return of the Jedi, I'm sorry. So definitely... I'm a fan. I watched it. I was 4 years old, so I went to the movies with my parents. But my father loved the Star Wars saga. He loves them, and we watched the VHS at home, the Betamax. At the time, the Betamax was very popular. For those that grew up in that era, they know what I'm talking about. So I have played with the video games. I watched the cartoons. I have done all of that. I'm a big Star Wars fan, like most of you, because the thing is that I hear a lot of times a lot of people saying I'm the biggest fan, and I wouldn't assume that you are the biggest fan. I think there's always someone that is going to have somewhere in one part of the world is going to be a lot bigger than you, and they can prove it. Maybe because they have purchased all the memorabilia or they have the money for that. But I think we all are fans of Star Wars in one level or another. Of course, as you know, this weekend we have the Star Wars celebration that happened in Chicago. Big celebration, it's a big event every year, and definitely was big. There were so many great news there, and we're going to explore all of them. And I'm going to start for the ones, and of course probably the smallest to the biggest one. But one of them to me is, of course, The Mandalorian. The Mandalorian, for those that maybe you're not on the know, is of course the upcoming show for the upcoming Disney Plus service, which is going to be their own digital service for streaming, shows, TVs, movies, cartoons, whatever. And it's going to premiere there, and it's one of the flagships of this service. And there was, of course, in the celebration, there was a panel where they present a lot of stuff. There were some trailers, a lot of inside information. Definitely great. The movie is directed, the movie, in this case, the TV series of the streaming service series is directed by Jon Favreau. So we know he is going to address a lot of the issues in regards to trying to please fans. He's great at doing that. And of course, it takes place after the fall of the Empire and the rise of the First Order. So it takes place between episode 6, The Return of the Jedi, and episode 7, who is The Force Awakens. So of course, it has to do, of course, with the Fets, and definitely it's great. It's according to the insiders, people that were there, are saying that there's going to be has a dark and gritty tone, and one of the the desires is to make it like a modern Western, like a Western. So it has like a feel, I would say, it will have a feel like Firefly, which I love Firefly a lot at the show. And definitely it's going to have that feel. And of course, you have the actors we know is Pedro Pascal, you have Gina Carano, you have Nick Nolte, Giancarlo Esposito, Carl Weathers, and Taika Waititi. And so there's a lot of people, great actors, people that are well known that are going to be involved in the process of this show. So definitely I'm very excited for The Mandalorian. It's a great take. You know, I read the comics in the 90s, since of course the Dark Horse was producing comics for in this case for Star Wars. And some of the greatest comics the Dark Horse produced had to do, of course, with Boba Fett, Jango Fett, and of course, you know, all the Fets, you know, all of them. So there were great, greedy stories there, you know, the Dark Empire. So there are great stories. And of course, The Mandalorian is going to present a new take, which I'm very happy for, because I like takes. I like different things, you know, trying to just to, you know, follow one single pattern like a lot of fans do. A lot of people, they only care about in this case, about the Skywalker saga. They only care about Luke Skywalker, the original movies, which I love too. But I like to see other takes of other characters, you know, to develop, fleshed out these characters, because it is a really big universe. It's a big galaxy. We're talking about galaxy. That's the name of in this case, of the whole universe, the franchise is Star Wars. So there's a lot of people out there. There's millions and millions of people. So it's important to know other characters besides, of course, Luke Skywalker or Leia or Han Solo. So I'm really looking forward for The Mandalorian. We also had a new trailer for Star Wars, the Jedi Fallen Order. We had a reveal trailer, which excited a lot of people. This is a game. It is, in this case, an action-adventure single-player story. So it definitely is kind of like The Force Unleashed, and I love The Force Unleashed, the Star Wars Force Unleashed 1 and 2. I love those games. Definitely phenomenal single-player campaigns. It's set shortly after Episode 3, which is Revenge of the Sith. I've been playing, of course, Battlefront 1, Battlefront 2, the most recent ones, and I love them. I play them almost once a week at least. I play Battlefront. I love that. There are multiplayer campaigns primarily. Battlefront 2 had a single campaign. It was okay. It was small, just a single story. But I love when Star Wars gives us those stories in video games, and it's another way to expand the universe. The Force Unleashed did phenomenal and expanded that. Very beautiful stories, great stories, have the great feel. You feel the Force because you're playing the Force. You technically are a kind of a Sith that turns into become a Jedi technically, but definitely here it's more like Jedi that after the fall of the Jedi Order, one kid that actually finds himself trying to hide from it, but ultimately he has to come back into it. You know, he's being hunted because he's a Jedi. So definitely it's a great story. It's developed by Respawn Entertainment. For those who don't know, Respawn is a great developer. They've been developed some of the greatest first-person shooters, and of course they are actually the developers is Apex Legends, which is actually a monster right now. But of course they're going to do this is going to be a single player. This is not multiplayer. And it's published by EA. And a lot of people that have their, they don't like EA because EA has this fame of always messing things up. But I love EA. I'm not going to say the EA has always done wrong. There's a lot of great games that have been published by EA. Of course, he has supported great developers like DICE and Respawn now. But there's so many games that have come from EA. So trying to demonize EA is always, I think it's not right. They just doing this is just a business. They trying to do whatever it comes to business. And they have given us so many great games. But this game is coming on November 15th. So definitely throughout that season, throughout the Christmas season, we're going to have a lot of Star Wars stuff. The Mandalorian is coming on December 12th. So 3 days after, you're going to have this video game. And I'm looking forward to that. It's going to be developed, of course, and on the Unreal Engine 4. So we know it's going to be a great looking game. I'm looking forward to that. But the biggest thing, of course, the biggest news this week was in regards to episode 9, and we got to see the teaser trailer, The Rise of Skywalker. And you know what? I can tell you one thing. That trailer blew my mind. It is just a beautiful trailer. This way, I'm telling you, I love trailers. And sometimes with trailers, sometimes some trailers, they're junky. Sometimes some trailers are bad and the movie's great. And sometimes the trailers are perfect and beautiful and the movie is junk. And we have seen that so many times, so it's not surprising. But this trailer, if you want to have your fandom, if you want to hype people, then you have to give them something for them to really like. And I can tell you one thing, Disney knows its business, knows the business. And of course, they are the owners now of Star Wars, and they're deciding what's going to work. And definitely this is it's on point trailer. And I'm telling you, it's going to turn a lot of people around. It's turning people around. I can see that through social media, throughout the whole weekend, people talking about it. A lot of people are excited because of it. And of course, you have the usual haters, the one that no matter how good you put it, no matter if you put a cherry on top of that, the ice cream, or put cake on it as well, they're still going to hate it because, as there are some people that they're just toxic by nature. They're just unhappy with everything. And there's some, I'm not saying that just because you don't like what happened so far in the last two, in this case, the last two episodes, the last two movies, doesn't mean that you're a hater naturally. Of course, every person is, it's entitled to have an opinion. The problem are the people that are too, they take it to the extreme, and they trying to say, for example, that Star Wars is dead. And I heard a lot of time people say, well, Star Wars is dead. Rian Johnson, J.J. Abrams, they killed Star Wars. They didn't, because the fact that we still have Celebration, the fact that there's a lot of upcoming stuff for Star Wars is proof that the Star Wars is not dead. It's never been dead. It's, it goes through ups and downs, and because there's such a multicultural, a multi, ethnical, and a multi, I would say, age divide. There's a big age divide between fans. Every fan is looking for something different. So it's, of course, it's going to clash some ideas, and some people might like it and dislike it. The same happens with the comics. The same happens with Marvel. Not everybody, not all fans agree on the same thing. I have friends that I disagree in in the fundamental basics of comics, but they're still my friends, and we still love, the comics. And I would say the same thing for Star Wars. But definitely, I was on point. I think the trailer was perfection. First of all, because the image, the scenes, the visuals. First of all, the visuals are important. They were on point. I love the visuals in Star Wars. The recent movies are beautiful to watch. Then, of course, sound design, that soundtrack, that music score in the background was epic, and that's how you, create a trailer. That's how you make it epic. And of course, the nostalgia factor. Nostalgia was a big part of that trailer. Of course, we got to see, it was, first of all, narrated by, of course, Mark Hamill. Of course, Luke Skywalker, and definitely was on point. The narration was great. Of course, you also got to see Lando Calrissian, which was something that everybody was so crazy about it. I am crazy because I love to see, of course, the older cast coming back, at least, to give a farewell to their parts and move, giving the baton to the next generation. We had to see Princess Leia, and of course, at the end of the trailer, you get to hear that laugh, which is, of course, Emperor Palpatine, and a lot of people are freaking out because definitely we know that there's something going on. Some people hated the title, The Rise of Skywalker. Sounds so generic for some, but I love it because it has a lot of message there. We don't know exactly who is the Skywalker. There's a lot of fan theories now, and it's going to be a lot of fan theories up to that moment. That maybe it's, of course, some people are saying that it's Rey is actually a Skywalker, or maybe, of course, in this case, the other guy, I forgot his name right now, but he turns from the evil side and he takes his rightful place as a Skywalker, or maybe that I don't know. It's so much to talk about this that I don't know what to say. There's a lot of gray parts here that put together definitely are going to keep us guessing until the last moment. And I love that. I love every minute of it because I love the way it has gone. And of course, that created a big response online. A lot of people are talking good about it, and a lot of people are hating it as well. And of course, even Mark Hamill, when, as usual, he always is very outspoken, and he goes on Twitter and he replies to the news in his usual way. As you know, Mark Hamill has never been too happy about the whole thing, and I respect Mark Hamill. I love Mark Hamill as a person, as an actor. He is the Joker to me. Of course, he is Luke, and he always going to be Luke Skywalker, and I loved him as that. But I don't think just because you're an actor, and I'm going to be going in more detail now into pretty much the purpose of this podcast, just because you're an actor and you get paid to portray a character, and you have certain right because you have portrayed that character. That doesn't mean that you know exactly what the future will bring, and you have you can visualize what the future will be for a franchise. And a lot of people are siding with Mark Hamill because he's siding with a lot of people, and a lot of people love what he says, particularly because he sides with a big portion of the older fandom that are unhappy with, the direction of Star Wars, and I respect Mark Hamill, and I always going to respect him. That doesn't mean that I have to agree with him. I do believe that Star Wars is changing. Yes, I do believe that perhaps some changes are not as to my liking, but I do understand that for any franchise to evolve, for any franchise to grow, it needs to go through that evolution change. It needs to go through that period where things are going to maybe hurt a little bit, and some things I might not be seen as well, or I might not be as accepting to it. But eventually, it's going to fall in the right place. And you have to know, and even the trailer presents that every generation has its own hero. Every generation has its own standard. Every generation has a person to look out to, and I look up to. And I think we need to know that, and respect that. Yeah, my child, Luke Skywalker, everybody loved to be him. And then, of course, we have the prequels, which I was never really a fan of the prequels. They were okay. I watched them, but I never really got captivated by them. But I can tell you one thing. Now, at this point in my life, at my age, I really like this new saga because it's a fresh take. And I feel that it's for a new generation, and it's fresh. I know a lot of people might dislike that, and to accept the fact that nostalgia can be deceiving, is also accepting that that we get old over time, that we're not always the same, that life changes, and eventually we become obsolete, and I try to say this with a lot of respect, because I understand that when I get to see a lot of things in my life, I get to see that as I get older, my taste of things changes. And also when I watch some of these old movies that I used to love to death, and I realized they weren't perfect. They were not as perfect as I thought they were. But of course, I saw them as a kid in a different view. Now that I'm older, more mature, I can see them differently. I go back and watch the original saga, and I need to review this saga, or the whole Star Wars saga at some point, and I will before this movie, the new episode comes out in December. I will review all of them. But definitely, when you go back and look at them, you realize that they were not as perfect. And sometimes we try to idolize all these things to the point that we lose sight of, we lose objectivity, and we lose sight actually what really matters, and in the end, what the message of the story is. Star Wars has never been, I would say, when you compare, a lot of people try to make comparisons between Marvel comics, Marvel movies, and Star Wars, and they try to compare it with each other, saying that that actual Star Wars should do what Marvel does in regards to movies. But they are two different monsters. They are two different machines that work in a different way. With Marvel, people are more forgiven because Marvel has been reconstructed so many different times in comics. There has been so many different variations. It's been in the comics for 50, 60 years, some of these characters. So they've been reconstructed time and time again, and there's been so many different visions depending on many different writers. So, of course, there are some bases that are maintained, but for the most part, every person has a different interpretation of the character. So people are already accustomed, and they're being conditioned to see this as part of a multilateral, a multi-diverse universe where actually they're not combined one with the other. Now, the situation with the Star Wars is that it's more linear story. Although, of course, we got first we got the originals, and then we got the prequels. But it's a linear story from beginning to end. Of course, that's the reason why they set up in episodes. So we see history unfolding over time. And of course, this is the third saga in this story. And of course, this is going to finalize the saga, and a new saga will come, and that will finalize another saga until another saga comes. Whether that's good or not for storytelling, it's part of the way it was developed from the beginning. And because it was set up that way, it's no way that you can actually, change and create a new story, or like some people were saying, why don't you revamp the story, reboot the whole story? But there's no way you can reboot Star Wars, because that will be even more disastrous than what they're doing now. So they have to move along, and of course over time, it's been so many years. It's been 40 years, over 40 years since the first one came out. So definitely you have to move the baton. You have to give it to somebody else, and you cannot reboot that. You have to continue with the story. And I definitely think that that's something that we have to agree with and we have to live with. That doesn't change the fact of the past. We still can love those movies, but we need to move forward to whatever has come. The Last Jedi was so criticized, but I really like The Last Jedi. I can tell you one thing. I found it to be extremely clever movie in some of the decisions that were made there. And of course, a lot of people find it offensive, and they actually argue the science behind it, of ramming a spaceship to another spaceship, things like that. They're trying to find something just to dislike. The direction of things, the pacing, but I like it because it was clever. It was a turning point to me, and when I get to review that movie, I will talk about all those things, and I like it. And I like J.J. Abrams, the way he did it. His first movie, The Force Awakens, was technically maybe an easy movie, but it was a very enjoyable movie, and that was the point, is to really rise and bring enjoyment to a lot of people, and particularly a lot of fans that never grew up with Star Wars, didn't know anything about Wars. It technically was to a new generation. It's giving Star Wars to a new generation, and I like that. I had no problem with that. And many kids loved it. Many children love this, and they're gonna embrace this for the next 40 years, and it was good. So and I love, Rogue One was a great movie. I love the tone of it. It was more a love letter to the originals, in my opinion. And Solo was great. A lot of people didn't support it because, of course, a lot of people don't see beyond their eyes or beyond their own feelings. They wanted to, penalize Star Wars for what they assume or they claim to be a disservice to themselves, to them as fans, but they missed the point. Missed the forest for the trees, because Solo was a phenomenal book, phenomenal story that really paid homage to actually also the originals, and I loved it. And you know what? I loved all this. And definitely I can tell you one thing, and I'm now coming to the end of this podcast, so we don't prolong this and you don't hate me for saying what I have to say. But at the end of the day, this is something that I think it needs to come out of my mouth. For the longest time, I've seen this. Many fans really aligning themselves into love it or hate it. And I feel that if you choose a side, then you might be completely missing the point of enjoying about this. Yeah, you can love something, and then you miss the things that need to be changed. You can hate something and miss the things that you can love. I think it's important for us as fans is to stay in the middle. Stay in your lane. Stay in your lane. Maintain course. Enjoy and criticize what needs to be criticized, but move along. It doesn't mean that you have to penalize this movie saying they want to kill, because that's not the purpose. The purpose of a person that sells hot dogs is to sell hot dogs. And that person is going to get up in the morning, produce something to the best of his abilities, and is going to give it to you because he wants to. Whether you like the hot dogs, because some people love it spicy and some people love mild, some people are going to love it, some people are going to hate it, and some people are going to criticize your hot dog. But you get up in the morning and you still make a hot dog because it's something that you love. And a lot of these people are involved in these movies because they love these movies, and they produce these movies because they want for them to grow. And of course, it's a business. You're doing it as a business, and there's a lot that needs to be done. Of course, when things are not done the right way, then just express it, but be respectful about it. Because ultimately, if we create this culture of hate, what happens, and I talked about it before, what it does, it harms more than it does good. And ultimately, these franchises, they disappear, they dissolve, because, nobody's really paying, because everybody's just going with this ship mentality, just following what everybody else says. I always tell people, don't go by what a person says online. Don't go by a review of someone that, might not be as knowledgeable as you are. Go by your own perception. Go and enjoy it. But take away all these ideas and try to compare this with the original films, because if you do that, you're always going to miss the point. You're always going to lose time. You're wasting your time, because all you're doing is trying to find similarities and also things that are unsimilar. Because the weird thing is, a lot of people are saying, we want Star Wars to be different, but we want them to keep the same storyline as before. And it's something that really gets on me. It's like, you want change, you want things to change, but you're not willing to change. You're like the type of person that says, let's go out and eat, and you go to a restaurant and say, I'm going to try something new, different, but you always end up ordering the same thing over and over and over again. And I'm telling you one thing, if you're the type of person that always order the same thing, you're just as boring as anything else. You're boring as a rock. And you know what? We all do that. I do that. I go to the same restaurants, I end up ordering the same thing. And then even my daughter says, Dad, you're boring, because you order the same thing. And I said, we need to be open to try something new. And I mentioned it before. Let's try something new. Vanilla is not the only flavor. There's also chocolate. There's also, I don't know, butter pecan. There's so many different flavors. And Star Wars has that opportunity to give us something different. So I'm telling you this. I'm excited for the movie. I don't care what everybody says. I don't care if people hate it. I didn't care about how the people hated in this case, The Last Jedi. There were a lot of things, cool things in that movie that I enjoy. And definitely I own it and I watch it whenever I can. And I do the same thing for all the different movies in the Star Wars saga from the beginning. I watch them all, I own them all, and I'm happy with them. And, I'm ready for the next thing. So, but what is your opinion? I would like to hear it. I definitely am excited for what is to come. Definitely it's a great year for Star Wars. And there's, of course, we're going to get to hear more news throughout this week. There's going to be a lot of more reveals, a lot of these websites and YouTube and Facebook are going to reveal things like that, and a lot of different takes and theories and people pretty much criticizing things and people praising that. So you'll want to visit this divide until everything subsides, until the next news and someone else is going to change the subject. You know how it is. But definitely I'm excited and I'm really looking forward for the Christmas season. So I would like to thank you for listening to the podcast. And again, if you're watching this on YouTube, please leave your comments below. Don't forget to like, comment, and subscribe if you're watching on YouTube. If you're following the podcast, please share that podcast with your friends. You can also follow me on social media, Facebook, Instagram, and Twitter. Don't forget also that you can support me financially. And through your financial support, I'm able to work and to produce more content for you in my podcast and in my channel and of course in my social media platforms. So once again, God bless you. Have a great day. Have a great week. And I'll talk to you again. Bye-bye.